We're geared up to talk endlessly about our favorite Nintendo Switch games, but first, I gotta talk about real life, specifically nutrition. It's hard, and as I get older, it's only getting to be more of a challenge. I've experimented with different vitamins, shakes, and green mixes over the years, but I've never really found anything that I truly liked. That's where the sponsor for this video, Grunes, comes in. Chowing down on 8 Grunes gummies a day gives me tons of vitamins, antioxidants, prebiotics, and after a few weeks of taking them, I feel really good. And I'll take them over swallowing a handful of vitamins or chugging a giant glass of greens mixture any day of the week. Grunes gummies are a comprehensive supplement, which have quality and properly dosed ingredients, so you can be sure that you're getting exactly as much as the daily recommended amount. They're super convenient. Each day's allotment is sorted into individual packets. They're grab and go. These gummies are vegan-based, gluten-free, nut-free, and dairy-free, and I think that they taste really good. I love berry-flavored gummies, so it's sort of like having a snack, you know? If you'd like to try them out for yourself, you can get up to 52% off your order of Grunes by using the link below. All right, let's get moving. Time to pay tribute to the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch 2 is right around the corner, so let's take some time to pay tribute to the original Nintendo Switch by talking about some games that defined the system for us over the last 8 years.
Yeah, just before we sat down to record, I actually did the math. I'll be turning 41 at the end of this summer. And the Nintendo Switch has been around for like about a fifth of my life. 1/5 of my life. Like that's weird to think about.
Almost your entire 30s.
When that came out in 2017, we just had, I think, the best experience playing that right after launch because we had a little trip, and I'm sure we'll get to that when we get to our top 3 games.
Yeah.
But first, I think we've kind of just got a list of honorable mentions. These aren't ranked in any way, but just games that we thought should be mentioned, even if very briefly. So do you want to...
Yeah. Well, I think that we need to state that some of these games, like most of these games, are multi-platform. We played a lot of these on the Switch first, though, which is why we associate these games with the Switch. And I think that that's kind of an important statement to make because, people can say, like, well, you could play this version on PC or on PS4 or 5 and it runs better. But no, I mean, these games that we're going to talk about are games that we played first on the Switch. For all intents and purposes, these games are Switch games to us.
Yes. I mean, we picked the Switch version for a reason, but I do think it's also worth pointing out that, we are, I would say, both primarily big screen gamers. You play handheld a little bit more than I do, but I think our lists might look different from people who are primarily handheld gamers. A lot of people do think of the Switch as a handheld first. I think of it as a home console first, even if, its visuals and, resolution are a lot lower than the 4K consoles. It is a home console to me, first and foremost. And, games that might run at 30 FPS or worse on Switch, maybe run at 60 on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. So we tend to choose those versions in games where we feel it will make a difference, but there's a lot of games that we chose on the Switch one. So that just because a game is not on the list doesn't mean we think it's bad. It just means the Switch version wasn't necessarily where we experienced it or where it made the impression for us.
Right. Yeah. So in that case, we're going to start with honorable mentions. These are just games that we think about, when in terms of the system. And I'm going to start with Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, which was, it's...
Not well received.
Not well received, but as a fan of the series, especially of Ghouls and Ghosts, the second game, this really felt like a return to form for me because I don't really care for the PSP game, Ultimate Ghouls and Ghosts. And it's made up of a lot of levels from the first and second game. And it just has a really cool I mean, I don't know how to describe the art style except for it looks like something you would see in like old, like medieval artwork, or as I like to say, like they look like the animated scenes in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And it's just a real fun game. It's really, really tough as it should be. I really like it. I thought it was much better than people gave it credit for.
Well, I'm kind of going to lump two games together here. One game, weirdly enough, is on my pledge list of games to beat this year. It's Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. I did not quite finish this game because the Impossible Lair is indeed quite difficult. And I'm going to restart it this year, play all the way through it, although I think I'm going to play the Xbox One version, but I did play it on Switch first. And it's excellent on Switch, runs at 60 frames per second. So much better, in my opinion, than the Retro Studios Donkey Kong Country games. Anyone who knows me knows that those are some of my most hated games just because I am so attached to those Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country games. And the Retro Studios ones do not feel like those games at all. And I just can't adapt. The mechanics, the trajectory of your roll jumps throws me off. And then Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair was, of course, made by Playtonic Games, and it's not 100% like Donkey Kong Country, but it feels so much more like an evolution of what Rare did on the Super Nintendo, and I like it so much more. Fantastic game. And another game that kind of came out of nowhere, you actually bought Kaze and the Wild Masks because you thought it looked like Klonoa, and you're a massive Klonoa fan. I enjoy Klonoa as well. And when I saw you stream this, you were immediately like, oh, it looks like Klonoa, but it's actually Donkey Kong Country. You know, the mechanics are very similar, roll jumps, stuff like that. And I immediately went and bought it, played the Switch version with my Nintendo Switch Online Super Nintendo controller to give that Super Nintendo feel. And that, too, is a game that I think does Donkey Kong Country better than Retro Studios, just my opinion. But yeah, I think I think it was made by a Brazilian developer somewhere in South America, I think. And there's just like a lot of heart and love in it. And if anyone has not seen or heard of that one, I recommend you play it. The Switch version is very good.
I'm going to pick something that both of us have played, and I'm going to go ahead and say Vampire Survivors, which is, I mean, it's one of those games that it's an enigma because it's kind of crappy, but it's really hard to put down, and it's just a really good way to waste time. You know, it's just you know it's very funny when you get enough weapons that the performance on the Switch like slows down so much that it can barely run. I can't believe it doesn't crash when it's like literally running at, you know, one frame every 10 seconds.
It's too bad that the randomness of the game would make it very difficult to like determine like how the Switch 2 improves performance, because it would be very difficult to get the same loadout and everything like that to like tank the system in the same way. You know, I would almost put this in my disappointments because I'm disappointed in myself for how much I played it, but I can't deny it is an addictive game design, and something that's just a little special thing for me personally. I love how perfect it is for the N64 controller, the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller, because basically all you do is like move one analog stick and hit the A button to like confirm your power-ups.
And you could probably tie that to the trigger maybe, so you could like theoretically play it with one hand if you wanted to. So I'm wondering if that is like the best way to play it. You know, you can sit there and eat a sandwich while you're playing it.
So I'm going to go for something actually like from Nintendo's first party output here, I'm going to say Mario Party Superstars, which was and remains the only Mario Party I have bought since the GameCube days. I kind of fell off of those just because, I didn't really have the right group of friends to play those with in college. And I was like, why am I buying these GameCube Mario Parties? Like, I'm just not playing them. The N64 ones were the ones where I had, the right group of friends to play with back in the N64 days during high school. And that's why I really have nostalgia for. And Mario Party Superstars just pulled me in with those N64 boards. Like all the boards are from the N64, and the mini games are from, like, I think Mario Parties like 1 through 10 or 11 or 12 or something, ones that I've never played, but a lot of them are those classic N64 mini games. So that really did a lot for me. And, while it is still a little bit hard to find friends who want to play it because Mario Party makes people mad.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to play Mario Party because it makes them mad. But I don't care if I win or lose. It's just a fun, goofy time. So, but it is really, really good. And, very much unlike the N64 games, it's actually a really good looking game. Like it's kind of impressive to me, like how good it looks and still runs at 60 frames per second on the Switch. So
taking from that, I think when a game looks really, really good on the system, especially when everyone says, oh, it's underpowered, and you can get such a huge variable in performance between games that when you get something that like looks great and runs great, it's something special. So I wanted to take this opportunity to mention Shinan made this game called Fast RMX, which is kind of a mix between Wipeout and F-Zero, and it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous game. And it runs at 60 FPS, and there's just like a lot of effects going on. And Shinan is known for kind of being able to make games that punch way above the weight of the hardware.
Yeah, well, they were very much the people that created Shinan are very much like old school, like tech demo scene, like European demo scene guys that did crazy stuff, on like Mega Drive and, probably Amiga and other, computers and stuff like that. So yeah, and I would describe it as like Wipeout aesthetics with F-Zero gameplay.
You got to switch between like blue and yellow.
Ikaruga style, sort of polarity where if you have to be the correct polarity to get like the boost. So yeah, it's a really, really good game. Ever since I got the physical copy from Super Rare, it has remained in my Switch carrying case. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe also never left my Switch carrying case after it came out. That's just a game that I could pop in at any time and have a good time with. Over the course of it getting all of that DLC, it did in a lot of ways lose its identity, I think. It had all these like real world locations that didn't look as good as the original courses, and lots of like non-Mario characters introduced into it. And I'm actually really relieved to see that Mario Kart World kind of hits the reset button and it's like all Mario characters again. They're pulling from like the obscure enemies and even, track obstacles like with the cow and stuff like that. It seems very much properly Mario themed again. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be the first time we had a new Mario Kart in a while. But yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I do think is worth a mention just because of being a game, maybe the game on the system that I never went all that long without playing at least a little bit of.
And I think it's the most successful game on the system.
Oh, by a long shot.
Yeah. One of the best-selling games of all time.
Yeah, I in the lead up to the Switch 2 launch, I've been watching a lot of the videos put out by Kit and Krista, who are like those former Nintendo employees that now do their own podcast, and they were talking about how Nintendo internally did not see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's success coming. Like, this was just like a low-hanging fruit, easy thing to put out on the system. And then it just kept selling. It was as much a surprise to them as it was to everyone else. But we went a whole generation without a completely new Mario Kart game. Kind of crazy, but it was a good one. Just very easy to pick up and play and have a good time with.
Yeah, and to kind of put that in perspective, I bought the physical copy, and when I got my kids each Switch Lites for Christmas, I got them digital copies. I ended up getting a digital copy myself, so I always had it around to be able to play it with them. So, I bought that game 4 times. Which is stupid. It's silly, but
400% attach rate.
Exactly. So it is certainly easy to see why they are doing a Mario Kart for launch. I feel like in the last 8 years, we've really seen a resurgence in the beat 'em up genre. So I wanted to mention River City Girls from Way Forward, which is an excellent throwback to the the River City Ransom games, but with a totally different art style. But it adapts these kind of periphery characters from previous games as the main characters. Just great soundtrack and a great visual style. And it's unfortunate that the sequel had some performance issues out of the gate, but I'm not sure if it runs better now.
That is absolutely one of the best of the beat 'em up revivals, in my opinion. I think because even though it's got a pixel art style, it still kind of tries to be its own thing. And even though it's based on Kunio-kun, I don't know, it feels fresh and new, and that's a very fine line for a retro revival to succeed. And this creates its own identity, I think, in a very good way.
And I'm going to throw it in that same basket. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which is, just so much fun and such a great throwback to those Konami beat-em-ups. But, it takes it so much further. And it's you can play it with 6 players, and it runs great on the Switch. It's had a bunch of DLC.
I still listen to I'll bring up just to listen to the character select music and the level 1 music. It's so, the whole soundtrack is great, but I listen to those a lot. I would say that Shredder's Revenge is my favorite brawler from this past generation.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say. Let's just put Animal Crossing New Horizons out there. This was very close to being in my top 4 to 10. But the reason I kind of bumped it out of there was that's a game that, once I've stopped playing it, it's hard to imagine really diving back into it. At this point it's okay, I'm ready for the next Animal Crossing. But I do think for me, it was the best Animal Crossing to date, which was no doubt fostered by the timing of when it came out. That game won the lottery with when it released, because everyone was so ready for that kind of game. And it was March 2020, wasn't March, April 2020. And you didn't get it right away, but everyone was just devouring that game when we were all stuck at home as people were trying to figure out this whole pandemic thing. And that was the perfect game at that time. And it really is a great Animal Crossing, just in terms of being able to the way you could customize your house and sculpt the island and visit all these other islands to bring cool stuff back to your island. And it was just constantly engaging. And I played it consistently for longer than I've played any other Animal Crossing. And but yeah, it's hard to see going back, but I had a great time with it. I think it's absolutely a defining game for the Switch.
I think this is something that's both in our honorable mentions, and that's Super Mario Wonder. It's just a really good return to form. It was just good playing a 2D Mario that takes inspiration from the old games and has like every level in that game has a different gimmick. Very, very few repeats. It's pretty impressive the amount of ingenuity that there is throughout the entire game, and you could tell that the team making it just is throwing everything that they could ever think of into it. You know, like I think it looks cool. It's almost like a redesign in a way, in terms of like a, you know, versus the new games. And this really takes a lot of that old NES era box art and makes it into like you know, stylizes Mario and other characters after that.
You know, they do their really strong keyframed poses, and they hold them, you know, and then snap to them. And that really looks like the way they were drawn in like the instruction manuals for, you know, how you do all your actions and stuff. And the thing I really like about this game is it feels like a successor to Super Mario World or Yoshi's Island. If you think back to the 8 and 16-bit era Mario games, each one of them has a wildly different art style from each other. And the new Super Mario Brothers games were very much about locking that down and not really varying what they look like, and they're just so samey, so sterile. While I don't really know what I would describe the Super Mario Wonder art style as, like watercolor-ish, maybe a little bit, but like it does feel like it has like an art direction that the new games lack, and it feels like this is the successor to that 8 and 16-bit era where every game looked fresh and different. And I loved it. It's actually the first like Super Mario game, the first new Super Mario game that I have 100%ed since Galaxy 1. While we're on Mario platformers, I'm going to give a shout out to Super Mario Maker 2 because I didn't plan to get this game. I'm not a big user-generated content guy. And, I skipped the first Mario Maker. I never expected user-generated content to feel like the next evolution of Mario, but it kind of did. It felt like it had that spark of imagination that the new games lacked. And of course, this came out before Super Mario Wonder. I didn't make that many levels of my own, but I had a good time doing it. In handheld mode, of course, where you have touch controls, would have been very difficult on the TV screen. There was just something about it that really surprised me. Just lots of that's clever, moments that you would see, and you would realize like, oh yeah, I mean, even in the Nintendo created levels. So yeah, I was surprised. This was not something I expected to like or put nearly as many hours into as I did. Yeah, I was impressed, and I'm here for a Mario Maker 3.
All right, well, I guess if we're going to stick with mascots, tonight is a good opportunity for me to mention Sonic Mania. Somebody who, likes the old Genesis Sonic games, and, like Sonic Adventure 1 all right, but, has been very much a fair weather Sonic fan ever since. Sonic Mania was a return to form, and is just a really, really great game that I'm not sure if a 2D Sonic game can be done any better than this. It takes a lot of inspiration, like by recycling locales from the first 3 games, and then puts a spin on it for like the second act, and then there's like new levels, and it's just great. It's just great. One of the best CRT filters I've ever seen in a game.
Absolutely. I mean, if you weren't going to mention it, I was going to. So I'm going to next pick Dragon Quest Builders. That's definitely a game that could have been played better on a system like the PS4. But I chose the Switch version. I'm honestly not sure why I did, but I just did. And I thought it was totally fine on the Switch. And neither of us are like really into crafting in games. Every once in a while it can be done well. But many years ago with the Backloggery crew, I played through Minecraft. We beat the Ender Dragon. But this is much more my style, where for one, it takes the aesthetics of a series that I already absolutely love with Dragon Quest. But it also has a lot more direction. There's a lot more purpose to what you're doing. A lot more guidance. Like, you are building a village and you need to build certain structures to progress the plot. Although you do have some flexibility with how you do that and how you build up fortifications to protect the village and complete other objectives. It has, I want to say, like 5 kind of chapters, and you kind of like start fresh in each one in a different area of Alifgard. And you've kind of got the very simple action RPG combat, and I just think it comes together. It's just kind of a great adventure. It's just fun to explore that world, and that sort of Minecraft adjacent aesthetic actually fits so perfectly into Dragon Quest. One last fun little note on Dragon Quest Builders. I actually beat that game in Japanese airspace. Like, we were just about to land in Japan, and I was like beating the final boss and rolling the credits like as we were preparing to land in Japan. And I just thought that was so cool. Not at all intended, but it's like, that's kind of cool. Like, the very first thing I do in Japan is beat a Dragon Quest game. That just felt very appropriate to me.
First off, I want to mention a game called Slipstream, which is an arcade racing game, arcade style racing game that feels almost like Outrun-esque. It's all about drifting. It's all about driving sideways, and it's just, it has a very simple aesthetic, but it's just really, really smooth, and has simple but addictive gameplay. And the other one I wanted to mention was Cruise and Blast, because this is a game that, you're a big fan of the series, and I saw you stream this one, and I immediately went and bought it myself, and it's so stupid and so much fun. And my son played through like unlocked almost everything.
Oh, wow.
He just had so much fun with it.
I had no idea this was an arcade game before it was shown on Nintendo Direct coming to the Switch. And it's awesome. I was so excited for this. I mean, one of the most colorful games like released in the past generation, for sure. Like, it's just very bright colors and just revels in its own stupidity. It really took me back to, the days that the original cruising games were from. I mean, they were pretty stupid themselves, but it didn't just remind me of cruising. Like, it when you've got stuff like you can unlock like a helicopter that you can like drift with and like, go bounce off other cars and like flip vertically in the air with this helicopter, and Triceratops, and all of these other vehicles like this that should not be moving in this way. Like, it took me back to like just the spirit of fun that you would have had in like an N64 game. Like, again, not talking just about the cruising games, but also talking about stuff like Big Head Mode and GoldenEye.
Yeah, very games, Midway-esque.
Yeah, just games. They were like, why don't we just do this stupid thing? Like, it feels like they were just playing around with like dropping goofy things into the game for their own amusement, and they're like, why not leave it in the game? Like, why not just leave this here? Like who cares? It's fun.
And it was nice to see a game with that many unlockables.
So here's a game that it may be kind of weird to have on this list. It kind of almost surprises me I put on this list, but Monster Hunter Stories 2. I liked this game. Has a lot of problems, and it remains the only Monster Hunter game that I've beaten. I liked what I've tried of Monster Hunter Rise, but every other Monster Hunter game I've tried, like, I'm just like, I do want to give more effort to Rise, but Hunter Stories 2, it is one of the worst performing games I've played on Switch. I'll tell you that. It's got garbage dungeon design. Some of the dungeons I do believe are randomly generated, but others I don't think are randomly generated, and yet they take pieces of geometry from other dungeons. So the dungeons are really lame from a design standpoint, and yet I found myself just weirdly compelled by the game, mostly because I liked the battle system a lot, you know. But whenever there's a game that tries to do something Pokemon-like, I tend to be like, why am I not just playing a Pokemon game? You know, I can't even remember the monsters in Pokemon. You know, now you're going to like hit me with this whole other list of monsters. But the thing that really worked with me for Monster Hunter Stories 2 was, and again, another thing I don't normally like is not having control over your other party members in a turn-based RPG. But here I thought it really worked because the game is about like building trust with your monsters, and the fact that they don't 100% of the time do what you want them to do kind of made them feel like real creatures. But if you brought out the right monster for the right situation, they tended to do the right thing. And so you kind of had to like learn to trust your instincts with the monsters and learn to trust them.
All right, this next one is perhaps a bit self-serving for both of us, but I just wanted to mention Arzette and the Jewels Faramore.
Of course.
because we got to do some voice acting, and you did some other stuff for it.
Yeah, I did a little video work.
You know, it's just a fun CDI Zelda throwback, but it's so much better than those. And I think it just like blew away everyone's expectations, just how committed to the bit the game is, but also in making it good.
It just made me so happy too that the success the game had. I mean, I was really worried, like, I just don't know if like it's going to hit its audience. Like, I know what the intended audience is, but I was concerned it was going to struggle to find it. And just from day one, like, it found that audience, and people were, I was so happy for Seth to just see the reception that it got was incredibly heartwarming. So I'm going to give a shout out to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I actually like dropped off of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I almost put Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in my disappointments list, but I took it out because I'm like, I've talked to people who have assured me that if I had played just a little bit further, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 would have gotten really good. So I'm going to give it another try. But 3 did like kind of correct a lot of the problems I had with 2. Like it just is immediately much more engaging from a gameplay standpoint, I would say. The world setup is like very unusual and interesting. And they had a great kind of class system where you could like kind of swap around the classes that the different characters kind of have by default. It was kind of fun because they like they kind of like swap each other's clothes basically when you do the different jobs. So it's like cool to see like how each character looked in different outfits. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it, but it was just it was really good, really solid.
Next, I'm going to, I guess, mention a couple of 8 and 16-bit throwbacks. First, I wanted to say how much I like The Messenger. That's a game that starts out 8-bit, but then, progresses into a 16-bit aesthetic. Kind of quirky writing in it that might not be, I guess, successful for everybody. But I thought it worked pretty well. And I think you thought it rides a very specific line of like being, as the kids would say, it'd be cringe, but not.
Yeah, it's the kind of ride that I would normally hate, but it was so tied into the story, and the aesthetic was tied into the story in a way that like made it feel like a celebration of like video games themselves. Even though like the story wasn't directly about video games, it still felt like something of a celebration of the art of video games and the way they make us feel and the stories that they tell and stuff like that.
There's a flow to the game that, you know, the way that you can jump after you slash a candle or something like that, the way that you can keep this forward momentum going all the time, it just has a really good flow to it. It's just really good. I still have to play Sea of Stars, which is takes place in that same universe, but we'll see when that happens. Another game I wanted to mention is Blazing Chrome, which was a Contra throwback from the arcade crew. What's the name?
Joy Masher.
Joy Masher, that's right. And this is perhaps the best Contra game since Contra 4, I would say.
Yeah. It could have, maybe even should have been like an official Contra game.
That should have been the real the Contra Hardcore sequel.
I'm going to shout out the 2 HD 2D games that I played on the Switch, which were Octopath Traveler 1 and Live Alive, or Live Alive.
However
Live
you
Alive.
say it.
I used to say Live Alive, which I think sounds better. But, when Octopath Traveler was first announced and they kind of had that very early demo, I was really not sold on the HD 2D aesthetic. And I know a lot of people don't really care for it that much. I did not like it. But by the time the game came out, they made enough adjustments that I think it looked a lot better. But I will say it does works a lot better at a higher frame rate and a higher resolution on like PS5 and Xbox. And I really liked it. It's definitely got its problems. But the thing that I thought was so interesting about it was it kind of feels like a Western RPG. And I think I think people do it a disservice when they're like, oh, it's just like the Super Nintendo RPGs you remember. It's really not. Like it is like a Japanese RPG aesthetic version of a Western RPG, because while you do have like the Japanese style battle systems and random encounters, each character has like their own skills, like, charming NPCs, stealing from NPCs, crafting medicines, things like that, that kind of feel much more like skill checks in a Western RPG, your Elder Scrolls, your Dragon Ages, that kind of thing. So just the kind of openness. It was very much kind of an open world game that didn't feel like an annoying open world to me. And I actually kind of liked that the first game was very much about these like kind of personal stories. It wasn't really about saving the world until you like try to do the true ending stuff. So I was actually very satisfied, like just doing the personal character stories, because it felt different. And Live Alive, I remember just marveling, like, oh my gosh, I am at a Best Buy in, the 21st century, buying this long lost, never localized Super Famicom RPG. Like, I bought this at retail in the US in this year. Like, how? Like, that's just such a miracle to me. Like how did we get so lucky?
Because that was one of those games you saw screenshots of in magazines, and you wish that it would get released here, but there's just no chance. Like, so many Squaresoft games did not get localized for whatever reason, like would be classics today, in the same vein as like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3/6J.
Absolutely. And this is definitely a weird game. Like, you have to be in the right frame of mind to play it, I think. Because what I found so interesting about it is that like the gameplay, like, because each, you're following these little vignettes. It's like mini RPG vignettes that seem completely unrelated and happen in different parts of the world, in different periods of time. And they're relatively short, so there's not like a lot of time to really like get into like meaty like game mechanics and building up your character's stats and arsenal and stuff like that. Instead, like, each character kind of has their strengths and weaknesses and limitations, and I kind of feel like the RPG mechanics are actually more about telling the story of those characters and defining their personalities and defining their place in the world and stuff like that. So it's an interesting way, I think, to augment the story through mechanics, but the mechanics themselves don't really stand that well without the story. But it's so unique, and I think really is a special game that, you know, I think, you know, our RPG diehards would find to be pretty intriguing if they were in the mood for something a little bit different.
All right, so I got just a few more on my list here. I'm gonna take this opportunity to mention the Rotund games, specifically Rotund Takeoff, which is better known as Chubbins. This was a remake of Chubbins that was on the Wii U, and this kind of takes that I guess cheaper like polygon look of Chubbins on the Wii U and makes it sprite based. It's a infuriating game where you had this little bunny who's he's a little chubby and he's just bouncing on these arrows, and you're moving through the levels, and it's like super tough. But the Rotund games, they had for whatever reason, I guess maybe Chubbins was not like a name that they felt would sell that well. Or did not sell that well, or maybe somebody else had a copyright on a name, because I mean Chubbins is an amazing name. But they like rebranded it Rotund. There's like Rotund Takeoff. There's our Game Boy inspired prequel, and then there's a newer one which I have not played.
Good simple pick up and play game for a handheld system, right?
Yeah, and you can only play it on the Switch and on Steam. It's on nothing else.
I'm going to give a shout out to A Short Hike.
That's a good one.
This was a game like I almost didn't get. I played through the whole thing on an MLiG stream. And man, what a great time this game is. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm normally not super into the whole like cozy games trend. But this was like exactly the right kind for me, because it's a 3D platformer, but in kind of a different way. It's like this big open world 3D platformer, and you have like the same kinds of challenges that you would in, you know, hunting for items to, you know, unlock things and whatnot in a 3D platformer, but just in such a free form way. And you know, it had every bit the same kind of fun that you would find in another 3D platformer, but done in like a completely non-violent way. And so that just kind of made it a little different. The aesthetic is very, very cool, especially if you maybe like play it in like one of the kind of low resolution modes. It very much has kind of a retro throwback. It surprised me how much of the same joy I got out of other 3D platformers through this kind of just this cozy game. I'm almost to the end of my list here. I do want another short 3D platformer I want to shout out is Bowser's Fury. I really liked Bowser's Fury. I don't know if it will be kind of like a template for the next 3D Mario we see on the Switch 2, but I definitely kind of thought it might be at the time. But even though it was so short, I mean, I had a fantastic time. Extremely well-designed game. Very curious to see what the Switch 2 patch will do for that. I would really like to see how they expand on that kind of open world concept. Like that was open world done right, I would say, for a 3D platformer.
This is something I think both of us have played, is this game Bot Vice, which was, you know, it's kind of a gallery shooter in the, like akin to like a Wild Guns, but more an overhead style perspective where you could also take cover behind obstacles. And this is a real cheap game, and just super solid. You know, it has a great aesthetic, great like pixel art, and it's just really fun to play.
Yeah, that's from a small developer, two brothers, if I'm not mistaken, called DYA Games. And what I really like about their aesthetic is I feel they lean so much closer to Super Nintendo aesthetics than almost any other developer, because like a lot of times when someone says this is a 16-bit style game, it's like it's really closer to like Sega Saturn or PlayStation. And and other 16-bit style games tend to go more for like a Sega Genesis color palette, but this one feels very much like a 1995 Super Nintendo game. Like it has shading, but not too much shading. So I really appreciate that about their games. That gives them a unique look, and Bot Vice is a really good one to try out for sure. There are more games that I put on the list of honorable mentions just because I felt like people would be disappointed or upset if we didn't say anything about them, more so than they were actually honorable mentions for me. Like, these are games that I liked, but like aren't as special to me as they are for other people. Like Astral Chain. There are a lot of people who just think Astral Chain is the best thing ever, one of the top tier games on Switch, probably in their top 3. And I liked it a lot. I thought it was really cool to see, that tier of production with an original IP on the Switch, published by Nintendo, really well put together game with a great aesthetic.
I'm just going to do these last two. I'm just going to do one and then the other. First, I want to mention this game called Zhao Mei and the Flame Dragon's Fist, which showed up like randomly in an email with like a Switch code. I'm like, what is this? And so it's a very much like a belt scroller, like Kung Fu or like Dragon Wang or like Vigilante, where you're moving through like a purely 2D stage, and enemies just kind of like keep swarming at you and they grab on you. But this adds in a whole bunch of like different special moves. And like in the last game I want to mention is something that I've been playing recently, and that's Natsuman, 20th Century Summer Kid.
Another thing I don't know what it is.
It's like the spiritual successor, and it has the same developer as Boku no Natsuyasumi.
Oh, okay, this game, yes, okay.
And this is on PC and Switch. The Switch version like runs, it chugs and glitches up a bit. You're a kid on vacation in 1999 with their family. It's like you're part of a traveling circus. It takes place over the course of a month, and each day, people go out and do things, and you just like explore the town. But it adds a bit of, I guess, Zelda Breath of the Wild traversal, where you can almost like climb up anything. So you can kind of go off into the woods and find like mountains and climb up, and you'll find different people up there. And it's a really great and I guess cozy game to play. But what I like to do is you can set the time progression to just relaxed, where a day takes about an hour. So I've been playing like one day a day. And as you explore, you find, you meet new people, you find like little like objectives, you collect bugs and fishing and stuff like that. But you are also like uncovering like these mysteries of like, stuff going on around like in the temple up in the hills and stuff like that. It's just a real fun game to play that you definitely just want to take your time with. And I wish that it would get a physical release, but as far as I know, it did not do very well. So the chances of that are very small.
So I'm going to wrap up the honorable mentions with a trio of, multiplayer focused games. Switch did have Splatoon 2, 3, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And I did put a good bit of time into Smash Ultimate. I enjoyed the single player modes in Splatoon 2 and 3. And, played some multiplayer. But, funny thing, like they always keep putting me on the losing team in the Splatoon games. Like, how does that keep happening? Like, what's the weak link here? I don't get it. The single player games in these are good, but they've never quite lived up to when the original Splatoon was first shown off and we saw the single player mode. I was like, oh, it looks like Ratchet and Clank. And like, I feel like I've perhaps like unintentionally like ruined the entire series for myself by that knee-jerk reaction of seeing the first, because like I'm still waiting for the single player campaigns in Splatoon to be as good as Ratchet and Clank. And they usually do have like really awesome final boss fights and awesome music and stuff, of course, but they're good. They're enjoyable romps through their campaigns, and you know the multiplayer is well designed, but you know it's not really my thing. So yeah, do we want to just list a few? I already mentioned Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in terms of games that feel like they should be mentioned because they did make a big impact on Switch, even though we may have played them on another system first.
Immediately, I just wanted to mention Metroid Prime Remastered, which is so good. I mean, that original Metroid Prime, just in general, is very close to a perfect video game as far as I'm concerned. It's just so thoroughly overdone or redone in a way that just calling it a remaster is not doing it like any favors. I feel like it's almost a remake because it's just that extensive.
It's a visual remake, as Digital Foundry likes to use the term, where like the underlying gameplay is the same, but like the graphics are completely re-arted. Even though this is on the Switch, and you know, obviously this could have looked better on more powerful hardware, I think this is one of the best remakes of all time, just because of how well it preserves that original experience while also like adding that just like perfect little gyro aim compensation if you want to use it. It's
every bit as good as now as it was when it first released.
A couple of other visual remakes are two games that I don't think anyone ever would have dreamed Nintendo would bring back, especially not like in like full-on visual remake form, is Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Super Mario RPG especially, I never saw that coming because that game is so weird. It's like this unique blend of like Nintendo and Square Enix, and it is so off-brand, from the character models to the original enemies that are in it, and just the weird kind of magical Square soft-isms. It's so weird, and I cannot believe it got remade. And playing it again just reinforced to me, like, this was such a pivotal game for me, and my gaming history on the Super Nintendo was really like the gateway into RPGs for me. Very, very impactful in terms of my overall game tastes. And the fact that this was done so faithfully, and I hadn't played through it again since probably college, and just really re-emphasized for me what a well-designed, well-balanced, well-paced game it is, which, you know, 90s Squaresoft was unbeatable in terms of game pacing. And I never really knew how long this game was, because the original version didn't have an in-game clock. And, you know, it's like a 12-hour game, which is
great. It's like, that is great for people that have never really played an RPG, especially. That's a great intro, and you know, that's, like you said, it was the gateway for a lot of people. Maybe still today, especially that it's more accessible again, like the ultimate like introduction to Japanese RPGs. And of course, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, you know, that caused controversy for, you know, the GameCube version is 60 frames per second, the Switch version is 30 frames per second. But gosh, it looks so beautiful. Like, it's just so stinking good looking. With like all the unnecessary reflections and stuff that it has all over the place. It almost looks like ray tracing. It looks so good. I think the drop in frame rate was worth it just because it looks so good. Although it would be nice to see a 60 FPS patch on Switch too. Who knows? Maybe that'll happen. It did kind of re-emphasize for me, though, that some of these early Paper Mario games do have I mean, a lot of the Paper Mario games have problems, let's be honest. But like, even this one, which is like generally considered the fan favorite, like, it's got some annoying stuff in it, like, that really turned me off, especially on like Super Paper Mario. But like, it does have some things in it, like making you do tedious things and poking fun at itself
for making you do them and laughing at you for doing them. Like, it's like, haha, we know this is really stupid. Like, you're going through all these hoops to do this one task, and it's taking forever, but isn't that funny that we made you do that? And it's like, maybe a little bit, but it's mostly annoying. But overall, it is fantastic and one of the most unique and most like kind of like shockingly like hardcore Mario games with some kind of wild scenarios that you would not expect to ever happen in a Mario game.
So I'm going to mention Katamari Damacy Reroll.
Absolutely.
Which was a great remake. You know, Switch version runs at 30 FPS. You know, that first Katamari game,
perfect game.
It doesn't waste your time with anything. You're just every level is fun to play. There's no like silly gimmicks like that the following games would have. You know, it's just roll everything up and see how big you can get, and that's super fulfilling. And I feel like that is what's lost in future games.
I want to shout out Doom 64. In a lot of ways, this was like kind of my first real experience with the game. I mean, I remember a friend either had it or rented it back in the day, and so I saw a little of it. But I wasn't really into the so-called boomer shooters really at the time. And it's really been this past generation. Like, this should be a shout out to Night Dive Studios in general, because they have really turned me into a boomer shooter fan. Like, I've realized this is my thing. I like the pace that these old FPS games move at. I like the kind of exploration aspect and sort of figuring out the levels. And the simplicity and purity of like the shooting and aiming, like it's not overly complicated, not overly technical or mechanical. Like you just shoot and you know your bullet finds its mark. They're about so much more than just like, you know, pure aiming accuracy and stuff like that. I really like
it. Does a lot for you.
It's, you know, an original Doom game. Every fan of Doom should play this. It stands alongside, you know, Doom 1 and Doom 2 very strongly.
I guess jumping off of that, I just want to mention like all the stuff that M2 has done this generation, which has been absolutely insane. You know, considering we did that documentary on them, and I guess we filmed it in 2018. It's amazing how much they've done since then to like makes that old documentary like completely out of date. But the amount of collections and stuff that they've released, you know, like from the Sega Ages series, which was obviously like a work of passion of theirs, where they enhanced a lot of games and added in like, you know, maps in Phantasy Star.
I mean, if I ever replay Phantasy Star, that is the way I will play it, because that mapping system is so cool and well done. You know, it's kind of got the gadgets in a similar way to like the shot triggers.
Things I want to really mention in that Sega Ages series is specifically like Virtua Racing is like the definitive way to play that game. It just like looks, you know, just so crisp, like makes it looks like it's like running at 8K behind the scenes. Of course, like Herzog Zwei, which is like a game that I would never imagine in a million years would ever get this kind of treatment. It has a whole like tutorial mode to teach you how to play the game. Outrun and Space Harrier. Of course, you know, like they did like the Darius games, you know, like the Cosmic Collections, you know, the Toaplan Arcade Garage. These are all like built on their shot triggers line, where it has like all these gadgets and stuff to tell you like how far you are through a level, like your score. Like it has all these like dials and stuff. It like makes it look like it's from the future, you know, and just like, you know, just a million things to look at. You know, they did the Castlevania collections, which is like insane that like basically every like good Castlevania game is playable on the Switch.
And
yeah,
you know, they even made the DS games work out, and they kind of, as a throwback to their like Rebirth series, they made like their own version, like own reimagined version of Haunted Castle, which I'm planning to play this October. For Halloween season on the Backloggery. I'm excited to do that. I've been holding off, so.
Like, how cool is it that, you know, that they released that Castlevania collection? They has all these different games, and they did the Advance collection with all the Game Boy Advance games and then the DS games. Like, that's amazing. It's amazing that all these are playable and accessible, and run so good. Yeah. And then, like they did the Collection of Mana, which was, they went above and beyond and like translated that Trials of Mana into English, like, which I think is so cool because that was one of those grails of the 16-bit era Super Famicom. Although it does have forced borders.
Yeah, aside from that, which we have the tools to crop that out now. But aside from that, I thought the DMG filter for Final Fantasy Adventure was really good, and that was how I played through Final Fantasy Adventure. I'd never played through Final Fantasy Adventure before. I played it on the Collection of Mana with the DMG filter. I thought it looked really good.
The amount of stuff that they released on the Switch that is like worth owning is staggering.
So I have one more game to mention for this, honorable mentions that we didn't necessarily play first on Switch. And this one's a bit different because it's not like a remake of an older game or anything, but Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. I feel like we would have played that on Switch if it weren't for the fact that we got review codes for the game for Xbox. So we both played through the Xbox version. We had a great experience, like kind of figuring out that game and finding the secrets together. We collected all the items in the game. But the Switch version, as far as I know, is just as good as the PS4 and Xbox and PC versions. And I feel like that would be the kind of the Switch would be the place I would have opted to play that, but it's just such a great game. It's one of our favorite games of the generation, so that's why I thought it was worth cheating a bit and mentioning that game.
I can't imagine a better tribute or follow-up to a Wonder Boy game ever being made again. If you grew up with it, if you grew up playing that series, like that is the game that shows you just how good it was and how good it could be. And I don't think it can be topped.
It's an incredible game. Are we ready to move into our just a couple of little disappointments?
An easy disappointment for me, when I thought of disappointments on the Switch, my mind immediately jumped to Bayonetta 3. And that's coming from somebody who like loves the first one and the second one. Bayonetta 3, it chugs. It's over bloated with too much stuff. I felt like it like really loses the plot. Although I would be curious to see like if this game gets a Switch 2 patch to see like how it runs then, or if it's just like it makes it a lot more fun, because it's kind of amazing that it runs as well as it does considering how much is going on. But like it drops that resolution like pretty significantly every time, like to achieve that.
Well, I'll be interested to see what I think of it. I've been putting it off because I keep thinking like maybe it'll run better on Switch 2. We'll find out very soon, I suppose. But
yeah.
So the first disappointment I thought of, like this is probably like my biggest disappointment on the Switch in terms of like how good I thought this game would be to how it actually is. Like don't get me wrong, I do not dislike this game. I think it's good. But Kirby Star Allies could have been so much better. Like, I am not a frame rate snob. I really am not a frame rate snob. But
I felt wrong. Didn't it?
Side-scrolling games at 30 frames per second are a hard sell. Sometimes games can get away with it. Sometimes you can get away with it. This one just couldn't. It just feels very stiff, very heavy. Very much reminded me really of like Kirby 64, which is also a stiff, heavy feeling side-scrolling Kirby at 30 frames per second. It's got all the gameplay stuff I want in terms of like, Kirby Superstar style mechanics. I mean, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe turned out fantastic on the Switch. It runs at 60 frames per second like the Wii original. And that's how they should have done Star Allies. The game does in a lot of ways feel kind of lacking in content. There's like 4 worlds.
Like the first 3 are really short, and then the last one's really, really long.
It feels unfinished in a weird way.
It does.
But to be fair, there was a lot of free DLC that came out that I heard actually does like really elevate the game in terms of content, which I never played. This is a perfect game as a candidate for a Switch 2 frame rate patch, though. I don't know if it'll happen. It might be too old for that to happen, but I hope it does, because this is a game that could be elevated from like
a 4 to a 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the frame rate would do that much for this game. I mean, hey, it does a lot for Kirby lore. I think it implies like dark and sinister things potentially about like the origin of Kirby and what he is. So the final boss is very cool. It's got some cool stuff in it for sure, but the gameplay is brought way down. The music's great. Like it's got like an 8-disc soundtrack.
I think we were both let down by Metroid Dread. I don't know if it's just like the proliferation of too many Metroidvanias takes away like how special that formula is. I thought it was very cool that they finally they moved the plot forward, which was nice. But I wonder if we're just sick of that. But then Metroid Prime remastered and have no problem with it. And I don't know if that's just like the 2D versus 3D aspect of it. The world in Metroid Prime remastered feels so cohesive. Where here it feels like you have too many items that are just about destroying blocks so you can get to the next area.
I think this is a really great game, and my disappointment is more in myself for just feeling so burnt out on the genre. And I'm with you. I mean, I think 2D Metroidvania is more overdone than 3D Metroidvania. And that's why Prime still feels special, I think. I'm with you on that item thing. I felt like every time I got a new item, I was like, ooh, I've seen a lot of things that this can destroy. And then I go to, where I can open the path, and it's like the other side of that block, guess what? It's a place I've already been. It's not going somewhere new. I would say 70 to 80% of the obstacles that you can destroy when you get a new item just take you to places you've already been, or a slight shortcut.
Then those items are essentially useless outside of that.
I normally am pretty about counter mechanics, but I think it's really well implemented here. And the final boss was really challenging, but also really satisfying, and you really have to know how to use that mechanic well. The core mechanics of the game are fantastic. It looks great. It's a really well put together game, but this is disappointment in indie developers as a whole. You don't need to make your own personal tribute to Super Metroid anymore. You're ruining the genre. We've played too many of these. If Metroid Dread doesn't feel like anything special, then the genre is oversaturated, because Metroid Dread should be something special. It could be something special just on its own, and I think it is for a lot of people.
Well, no. I was just going to mention Axiom Verge, which is another disappointment in that same genre. But this has absolutely no fault of the developer. It's just made by one person. It's just I felt like that was a game that just did not resonate with me, maybe because it was too overly complex. You had it's just a game that's using every single button on the controller. It felt like just trying to cram so much in there. And I wonder if the second game is better. I should try the second game.
I feel like I've heard people I think people who loved the first game like the second game less, but I've heard someone tell me at least once that I didn't like the first one that much either, but I thought the second one was really good. So maybe people who were disappointed in the first game, maybe there's something to love in the second game. Well, I'm looking forward to finding out. Another game that's kind of vaguely of that kind of search action-ish genre, big disappointment. A series that started on the Switch day one, Blaster Master Zero 3. First 2 Blaster Master Zero games, very good. Very good. NT Creates, a developer that I've got a lot of mixed feelings about. I think when they do other people's things, they tend to do quite well. Things like Bloodstain, the 2D Bloodstain games are very, very good. But when they lean too much into their own inclinations of I want to tell this story, Oh gosh, I hate how NT Creates tells their own stories, and Blaster Master 03 really leans into that. The story is so stupid and blah 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 blah, and it's like, I do not care. And beyond that, the game design is like, the level design is just really bad. It's just really hard to find your way, figure out where to go. There's like these dimensional tears that you jump through that should be a cool extra layer to the level design, but it just makes things really confusing. And to top it all off, it is Shimmer City. Oh my gosh. One of the worst scaled games on the Switch. One of the worst scaled pixel art games on the Switch. Do not recommend. First two Blaster Master Zero games, though, quite good.
The other one, the last one I have on my list is new Pokemon Snap. You know, I was in college when Pokemon came out, so I've never been a Pokemon like super fan. A couple years back, I had a great time playing Pokemon Snap with my kids. It was funny because right after we finished that was about when this was announced, and I bought it day one and could not get them to like be invested in it to that same extent. This time around, and from what I understand, a lot of people complain that like they made it too complex. There's too much here. Very similar to, I guess, Bayonetta 3, where, you know, we're gonna put so much in here that it just like dilutes the whole experience. And I think that's what happened here.
Well, I am not a super fan of the first Pokemon Snap. It would, if we were doing this same list for N64, it would be in my disappointments on N64. My last two disappointments, Yoshi's Crafted World from Good Feel. I thought Good Feel did an amazing job with Yoshi's Woolly World on Wii U. I mean, that game is by far the best sequel to Yoshi's Island that we have ever gotten. I think it, just in terms of overall game design, it's actually very close in quality to Yoshi's Island. And it has its own aesthetic with the yarn and everything. It's fantastic. The problem with Crafted World, though, is the flow through the levels is really broken up. And I think the main culprit is that it's the only Yoshi game, I think, where you can't move while aiming your eggs, because you need to use the stick to like move your cursor in to, you know, 'cause you can throw into the background and stuff. So you can't move while aiming, and I think it just disrupts the flow of the gameplay way too much, you know. Very much in the same way that like the blowing the dandelions and Donkey Kong Country Returns, you know, it just stops the action in a way that is very disruptive. I mean, it does serve kind of an exploration and discovery purpose here, but I thought the pace of the game was very stuttery because of that. And the music's not that great. And my last disappointment, although I wouldn't say expectations were super high. In fact, expectations were rock bottom by the time it came out, because we all knew about the kind of gotcha mobile game kind of formula it adopted. But Chocobo GP, that could have been a really good little kart racer. I mean, I think Chocobo Racing on PS1 is still a really fun game. And this could have been a great evolution of that with lots of cool Final Fantasy callbacks and remixes and stuff, but they took down the servers for it, I think, after not all that long, because people were really very opposed to what they did with it, so...
Yeah, I think we're ready to do like our unranked 4 to 10, just like our favorite games on the system.
So, and for clarity, I kind of borrowed this formula from the Digital Foundry Graphics of the Year Awards, like the past few years. If I'm remembering their structure right, they do 4 to 10 unranked, and then rank 1 to 3.
We should also mention that, you know, some of our games in our 4 to 10 might be in the others.
Correct. So we might not have a lot to say in response, depending.
So I'm going to start off with Streets of Rage 4, which is a sequel that I never expected to be good. I did not like Lizard Cube's like art style for Streets of Rage at the time. I loved it for Wonder Boy 3, the Dragon's Trap remake. But Streets of Rage 4, when I first saw that, I was like, I'm not feeling it at all. Like, it does not work. And then the game came out, and it totally turned me around. I think the game is excellent. It is maybe the best 2D brawler in, over a decade. It's just there's so much content. They added all this stuff like after the fact. Never even tried that roguelike mode that they added to it as a free patch. Just so much here for fans of the original. The music is amazing, and the art style, in the context of the game and gameplay, it works.
So my number 10 is Pikmin 4.
Okay.
I was quite impressed by this one. It's really weird to think it's an Unreal Engine game. This was really good, and I'm actually in a lot of ways surprised by how much I liked it, because I like Pikmin 1 and 3 much more than Pikmin 2. And a big part of the reason for that is because I didn't like the random dungeons in Pikmin 2 very much, and I also kind of liked the sense of tension that the limited number of days give you in Pikmin 1, and then the limited food resources that you have in Pikmin 3. Even though in Pikmin 3 it was extremely overly forgiving, other than an incident in the middle of the game where you suddenly have a lot less. This leans much more Pikmin 2. It brings back kind of the dungeon crawling aspect, and you have very much you're free to spend your time however you want. There's not a lot of tension in that sense. And maybe what I'm looking for in Pikmin is just different now. Maybe I'm more open to just simple dungeon crawling. I don't know. But I really had a great time with this. And, they did some great things like adding Ochi, the dog that you can ride, and he carries the Pikmin and can carry them across water and stuff like that. And he actually serves as a secondary character, because you can split up much like you can with Olimar and Louie in Pikmin 2.
All right, so number 9 for me, I had Animal Crossing New Horizons, which you talked about, but I want to state that I didn't play it until the following year. I don't know why I didn't get it right away, but when I got Switch Lights for my kids, I got my daughter Animal Crossing, and then after I saw her playing it, I immediately went and bought a copy of it myself. My daughter and I every day would do our chores you got to do in the game. Side by side. I'd be playing on the TV on my Switch, and she would be playing on her Switch Lite. And then we'd visit each other's towns. And for 6 months, every morning, that was our thing. And, it's just...
That's a memory you'll have for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Now that she's 13 and doesn't want to spend so much time around me, I always have those memories of us playing Animal Crossing New Horizons together. That's what made that game special for me.
So my number 9, I think this is definitely a dark horse pick here. I think a lot of people will be like, what? That game? I Am Setsuna. I think that game is criminally underrated. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of special for me for the Switch platform as a whole, because it was the first game that I was aware of. It was kind of one of the first bigger games that people were talking about, oh, you can import the Japanese copy and it just plays in English on your English language Switch.
We take that for granted now.
Yes, and so that became a huge, maybe one of the defining factors of this. If we were saying what are the top 5 defining factors of the Switch for you, I would say is the plethora of Japanese and Asian physical releases that play in English on your Switch when you import them. That was a huge factor of Switch 1 for me, and for you too, I believe. And this was right at the front of that. This is not necessarily the best place to play I Am Setsuna, because it is 30 frames per second. It would be 60 frames per second on PS4, but to my knowledge, it is still the only physical copy of the game. And I think people were really excited about this because it very much takes after Chrono Trigger in terms of a lot of its structure and especially its battle design. Its battle system is straight up Chrono Trigger with your it takes place on the same scene that the enemies are on, and you can do your dual techs and your triple techs and stuff like that. So if you love Chrono Trigger, it plays a lot like Chrono Trigger. I think what got a lot of people about it was that it's snow, and more snow, and it's piano music. And more piano music, except, the battle theme does have some percussion in it. I think people just got tired of it being samey. This created a unique identity for the game where it fully explored like piano music and cold themes in this desolate world where people are afraid to travel. And it made something by honing in on those, it made it very much more unique and memorable to me.
All right, next, this is a game you're going to talk about more at length later, but I think it's very good. And my number 8 was Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is an excellent way to take Kirby into the 3D realm. Like, everything about this is good, and it still impresses me now is that it still is never gotten a patch. But I like the idea that they made this 3D Kirby game that was unlike anything that they had done before, and they just nailed it without even having to fix anything after the fact. There's so much fun stuff going on here, and Kirby eating cars and just being stretched over cars and vending machines and everything is it's super creepy, but in the best possible way. It's gross, kind of.
The next one for me is the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which obviously those were originally 3DS games, but they never got localized, which is kind of funny if you think about it, because in some ways, these are actually these could have been the easiest Ace Attorney games to localize, because most of the game takes place in Great Britain. So they could have just made these, they could have made these English with so much less effort than the earlier games, which, are extremely Japanese and take place in Japan, but they try to pretend that it's like California for the American versions, which I understand why, because without localizing some of the culture, there's just so many clues that wouldn't make sense to anyone unless you were just native Japanese or completely immersed in that culture. The games would be almost unplayable and incomprehensible without some of that knowledge. So I understand why they go that route, but here they do make it so that Phoenix's ancestor Naruhodo, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, is Japanese, so he comes from the Empire of Japan, in the early 1900s, and ends up going to England and working with Sherlock Sholmes, which, but yeah, these are just great entries in the Ace Attorney series. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last ones that were actually directed by Shu Takumi. And I really just got to give a shout out to Capcom's work on bringing the 3D Ace Attorney games over to the Switch and, other consoles and PC, because those games really do just look really clean in HD. They really do. They just, the animations, the expressions, the way they adapted the cell shading just looks so good at high resolution, and they put a lot of care and extra features and fun behind just extra content for the fans. Those are, I think, some of the best, the Apollo Justice and Great Ace Attorney Chronicles are some of the best compilations on the Switch. Just extremely great updates to great games, and it was wonderful to experience the Great Ace Attorney story in English for the first time. So that is in my top 10.
All right, next I want to mention, I'm going to put Devil Engine, which is an excellent side-scrolling shooter with taking much inspiration from the Thunder Force games. Very much a, I guess, spiritual successor, but just incredible pixel art in this game. Crazy good music. It has really hard driving guitar music. Lots of cool effects and plenty of dithering going on. And it's just tons of unlockables. Just a great shooter that thankfully got a physical release last year after some legal battles with their previous publisher held that up, and along with some DLC, which I've not played.
All right, so next for me, this is maybe a bit of a surprising choice. It's Valkyria Chronicles 4. I indeed played this on the Switch. I was definitely looking forward to this game because I really liked the first Valkyria Chronicles a ton, and this one seemed to be more of a return to form. It was certainly the return to consoles, right? It very much takes after that first game, but has a few new features. It's got at least one major new unit type. But otherwise very much plays like the first one, which was a great game. I mean, it didn't really need a lot of refinement to the formula, to be honest. And even though it's something that I associate with Sony, because it was I think one of the key titles from the PS3 for its first several years, then I tried the demo on Switch and in handheld mode. And the game obviously looks a little bit worse than the PS4 version on the TV. But I think with the graphics shrunk down to the handheld screen, that to me was the visually best console version of the game. So aside from maybe 2 missions, I played basically the whole game in handheld mode, and I thought it was a great fit for the Switch, and beyond that, just a fantastic game. I think I like it more than the first Valkyria Chronicles. I feel like the story was really good. It does this great job of taking your crew and putting them in situations that really felt like a real life war campaign where they were concerned the winter is coming and this is going to be a really serious problem for us, and without spoiling anything, you really feel this sense of concern and peril for your squad. So I was really on the edge of my seat with the story, what is going to happen to these people?
Next Unranked game, I have it at number 6 on here. And this was kind of a surprise to you. And I had totally forgotten about it, honestly, until I was going through all my digital games. And it's just a really good pick up and play game. And that is Donut Dodo. And this is a single screen arcade game where you basically play as this guy jumping around and trying to collect all these donuts, and then you gotta get the big donut from the dodo, and it's pretty tough, but it's just it's a single screen, very Donkey Kong-esque arcade style game, and just a killer soundtrack. The main downfall of playing this, though, this is a game where that Pro Controller D-pad really works against you. You'll find yourself going up ladders you don't mean to, because without having that center pivot, sometimes you're hitting up into the right at the same time, which will make you go up a ladder. So you need to have you need a controller with a good D-pad to enjoy this more.
I was surprised to see this on your list because you forgot to put this on your games we played in 2024, so I didn't even know you played this. I didn't know you knew about it. So now you're telling us. Okay, so the next one for me, this is a game I have raved about, perhaps to an annoying degree, but from the same developer as Shredder's Revenge, is Panzer Paladin. And for a long time, this was only on Switch and PC. And this, I think this might be my favorite, original concept pixel art indie game that has been made to date. Especially, you know, one that kind of goes after a 8-bit sort of aesthetic. Of course, you know, it does things like parallax backgrounds and stuff. So it's, you know, it's not loyal to anything, but I think, you know, the quality of the pixel art, the animation, the music is so good. It's this blend of concepts that's like, you know, you've kind of got your, it's Mega Man-like and how you like choose your levels. You've kind of got like Zelda 2-esque sort of melee combat. You've got a down thrust similar to Zelda 2 or the Pogo and DuckTales. You've got getting out of your mech, and then you can move around as this like little android lady who has like a electric whip, and you can like it's very weak, but she, you know, can go through some places that the mech can't. You know, in a way that's similar to Blaster Master, except without the overhead portions. It's clear that like Tribute Games like understands their retro games, and they made something really unique and special, I think. And especially the music. I think about the music from this game all the time. I just, anyone who loves 8-bit styled games, or anyone who is like sick of too many like Me Too 8-bit style indie games, I think this is the best. As someone whose favorite console is the NES, I think this game is worth your time.
Next, I have the Ninja Saviors Return of the Warriors, which is a remake of, you know, the Ninja Warriors on Super NES, or Ninja Warriors again in Japan. And this was the first time that the first way that I played the Ninja Warriors on the Super NES version of the Ninja Warriors was this remake. And I just immediately fell in love with it. This was the second remake project from Tengo Project, which is, you know, the team remaking a lot of like Natsume games / like Taito games. Like previously before this, they did Wild Guns Reloaded, which was an excellent remake of that game. What is cool about their games, before their most recent Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, they were taking those original graphics and just kind of building upon that style. So they look and feel a lot like their original games, just blown out to like a 16:9 view, and also like a whole bunch of additional gameplay moves, and also like new characters.
But really, like any of these Tengo Project games are top-notch games for the Switch. They're all good on the Switch. I would say the Switch is probably the preferred platform, honestly, for all of them. So, you know, Ninja Warriors should've, as well as Pocky and Rocky, like definitely could have been on my honorable mentions list. Tengo Project, you know, I am here for anything they do.
You know, it's hard to go wrong with any of these 4 games that they've done in the last like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. I think
but Ninja Saviors is definitely my favorite of the bunch.
I think it's the easiest to get into. So next for me, I apologize. We are at the point where all remaining games on my list are Nintendo published. So next for me is Luigi's Mansion 3. That game is excellent. I played the whole thing over multiple streams on the Backloggery with Drumble, the whole game in co-op. But, you know, once you unlock Luigi, at least you can play the whole game in co-op. And I think this game is just such a testament to what you can achieve when you embrace a intentionally constrained game design. Because, you know, it very much follows that kind of diorama sort of point of view of, you know, the Luigi's Mansion series up to now. And, you know, it's got that fixed point of view, and, you know, you're just like kind of looking into this room, and they are gorgeous rooms, and with so many objects to interact with, and surprising ways to find little secrets. And it's just, it's fun, it's creative. If you're playing single player, you do need to sometimes switch between Luigi and Guigi so you can like split up and like solve puzzles together. And there's just not a lot to say about it really, other than it's just really, really good. Like it's just a rock solid, very impressive game that is a ton of fun to play with a friend.
Yeah, I definitely need to play this one.
I think that this is, by far the best Luigi's Mansion game. Like they really, really just nailed the execution on this one. It's just definitely a contender for the best looking game on the Switch, I would say.
All right, so number 4, and that's Super Mario Odyssey, which is, I guess the return to the traditional style 3D Mario game since, I guess, Galaxy, right?
Well, really more Sunshine, I would say. I mean, Galaxy was kind of the start of the more linear level design. What's really remarkable about this game to me is, in some ways, it almost feels like more epic and more expansive and vast than Mario Galaxy, even though it takes place like it's
on
like
one planet.
On one planet.
No.
Oh, I won't spoil the ending, but it maybe goes outside the atmosphere a little bit, but it's really not. Like, it feels like a grand adventure, especially the ending. Like, just lives rent free in my head. Like that ending, just like even though it feels kind of Sonic Adventure-ish.
Yeah. They took a nod from, like vocal tracks and stuff like that. That's, it's like a Sonic staple.
Tears in my eyes, like, as I'm like going through this, like, it has the best escape sequence in video game history is all I'm going to say. Like, the best escape sequence in video game history. Like that moment, like it's an amazing game, and that moment just elevates it so much more. Like, it just feels like this moment that like the Mario series has like always been leading up towards in a way, like it's just, it's so good.
Probably the thing that is saddest about this entire mention is that it's been way too long since I played this game, and I really feel a desire to go back and replay it because there's so much stuff that I don't remember about it.
Even though it's been so long since it came out, like it's poised to shine again on Switch 2. All right, these are ranked. These top 3 are ranked, so you guys can officially get mad at us now for the numerical value we have given these games.
My number 3 is Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. I did not play it on the PS4, so this was the first time playing through it, and dang, what a game! This is, I would consider this probably the best Dragon Quest game, just in terms of scope and playability, characters. The only real downfall is the music is not that great in this one, but at least this definitive edition allows you to, it has like an orchestrated soundtrack, which separates it from the original version on the PS4, which was all like MIDI sound, right? It's like it's a 100-hour game, and I feel like there's a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even do. The thing I love about Dragon Quest is that it never changes things so much that you feel like you got to learn something different. The stuff that made Dragon Quest good originally is still there. The story takes some twists and turns that were completely unexpected. And then you get this, it has some aspects of like a Final Fantasy VI, where you like go and you got to get everybody back together, got to get the band back together. One of the best aspects of Dragon Quest is like how familiar and steeped in tradition it is.
It's actually kind of amazing. I mean, we're talking this, 100-hour RPG. This is so out of character for me at like this point in my life. I've played it twice because I did play it on PS4 when it originally launched, and I played the Switch version in 2D mode, which was a fun, like breezy, way to just like experience the game in another way and see what the differences were. I thought the two.
And you replayed the entire game in that format?
I did not finish Act 3. So I technically beat it because Act 2 is beating the game, but like you really should do Act 3. Since I'd already done it, like I feel like that's okay that I didn't do that for the Switch version. But anyway, yeah, I mean, fantastic game. I would say the top recommendation for people who want to get into the Dragon Quest series, maybe people who want to get into like Japanese RPGs in general, like this is a stellar representative of the genre and the series. All right, so my number 3, this is the dark horse entry in my top 3. I think people are going to have opinions about this maybe. Paper Mario, the Origami King. I think this is the best Paper Mario game.
And even upon revisiting Thousand Year Door, you still feel similar.
Yep. In fact, that was one of the reasons I wanted to replay Thousand Year Door, because I wanted to like solidify in my mind, like what is my favorite Paper Mario game? But Origami King is really, I think, a return to form. Like it makes Paper Mario live up to its potential again. It kind of goes back to a traditional battle system in a lot of ways, except there is the twist that you have to solve a puzzle. Like the enemies are on these different rings, and you need to get them in certain arrangements to get like bonus damage. So you want to like line up like all enemies of the same type, for instance. And it might seem a little overly complicated at first, although for the first couple of chapters, it actually is kind of almost overly easy to solve the puzzles. You do have a time limit for that. And then the boss fights are also a little bit different. It's still on the ring system, but you have to like create a path to the boss. And the bosses are really fun. They're like these like real life, like paper crafting materials, like a hole puncher. Of course, the game is really funny, just like any Paper Mario game. And I will say it has the best soundtrack of any Switch exclusive game. Like the soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. It's just, it really feels like a confidently made game. They figured it out again.
Yeah, it took them long enough.
It took them long enough.
My number 2. I don't know if you probably didn't see this one coming, but I mean, other people might.
I saw it come. Actually, I'm surprised it's not number 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a tall order. I wonder if this will be a controversial opinion, because I mean, this game started out as a mobile game. It was on phones apparently to start, and that's Sayonara Wild Hearts, a game that the more distance I have on it, the more I love it. It is a playable pop album that will take you about 1 hour to play through the whole thing. And it's essentially like a sequence of QTEs. But the presentation, and especially the music, just, I say this again and again, and it's hard to say it any other way, but no other game makes me feel like this game makes me feel. An indescribable feeling of like sadness, elation, just beauty. I can't describe it. I can't describe it. And it makes you feel like your favorite albums make you feel. It's funny because this game was recommended to me and I had no idea what it was. And then when they said, "Oh, it's like a playable pop album," I was like, "Oh, I'm interested." And I go back to this game all the time, the replay levels, and just I listen to the music in the car when I drive, and that's like driving around to like music from a game is not something that I like do that often. It's just like a beauty to this game that nothing else can really compare to. And as time goes on, it's moving up my rank of like favorite games of all time.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't really so much seem like my thing as much as yours, because you like connect so much more strongly with like like pop music stylings than I do. But
yeah,
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like certain like songs in this game, like playing it, And it just like, it makes me, makes me like well up inside. It makes me want to cry sometimes. And I don't really know how to reconcile that, I guess. Like, I don't know what that means. But it's just like, it's just beautiful in a way that most other games can't even come close to doing. Like, it's like I said, just nothing else makes me feel like this makes me feel.
All right. So my number 2, people are going to say I cheated, but I am counting The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom together. And the reason I'm counting them together is because I feel like these are both incredible games, but they like can't be judged independently because they are both made worse by the existence of the other. Breath of the Wild is made worse because Tears of the Kingdom has, you know, some really groundbreaking mechanics that I don't know if any developer outside Nintendo will have the guts to try to implement even on more powerful hardware. Like the stuff that Tears of the Kingdom does is insane. Not to say that Breath of the Wild doesn't do some insane stuff too, because I thought like within 3 years of Breath of the Wild coming out, like every game was going to be like Breath of the Wild because it felt like a very revolutionary game. And people didn't really have the guts to do what it does either. I mean, there have definitely been some inspirations taken from it, but not to the extent that I thought there would be. But on the flip side, Tears of the Kingdom takes place in the same world as Breath of the Wild. So its newness is dampened a bit just by virtue of this is a familiar world, even though it does have, you know, new stuff in the sky, new stuff underground, you know, some different buildings set up, but it's fundamentally the same world. So Tears of the Kingdom would be better if I wasn't already familiar with its world from Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild would be better if it, even better if it, you know, had some of just the mind-blowing physics and building stuff that you can do in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, they are both incredible games, but they are so intrinsically intertwined that I can't rank them one or over the other. You know, the things they do with just the pure non-linearity, the way that you can truly explore any corner of this world from almost the very beginning, the fact that your friends are going to be going in different directions and doing different things first, and you know, you can the sense of talking to each other, that you know, it's cliche because everyone, you know, says it's like talking to friends on a playground, but it really does bring that feeling back in a way that almost nothing else does. And again, I don't think very many developers, even with like big budgets, are going to have the guts to do what Tears of the Kingdom did, even on much more powerful hardware. Like it's just unreal. Like in terms of like gameplay innovation, I think these are like the two most impressive games that have released since the Switch came out, on the Switch or otherwise. Like the gameplay innovation and just like
letting you go anywhere,
and the how it's just a very, they're very systemic games, you know, like you can just mess around and do just crazy things in this world. You know, I think something that you said clicked with me so much. You said on your Here's My Question for You podcast with CGQ Chris, you described it as, you know, other open world games overwhelm you with like all these icons on the map. You know, you go to the top of the tower in Assassin's Creed and suddenly there's a bunch of icons, a bunch of things to do. In this game, it's blank, and you find the icon and then you find something to do and you do it. And there's almost always so many things in sight that's drawing your eye, like, ooh, what's that over there? And you're like genuinely interested. Like, wow, these games are just masterworks of the craft. No two ways about it.
Yeah. And for that reason, Zelda Breath of the Wild is my number one favorite game on the system. I just specifically picked Breath of the Wild and not both of them because I just feel like Breath of the Wild is the more fresh experience. And if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going to pick Breath of the Wild because I just feel like that is the essence of adventure and everything that Zelda signifies, like totally distilled in the fact that they were able to make a game like that. And, you know, it even ran on the Wii U, that it works the way that it works. And it just is this grand adventure where you're basically kind of just like set free. And it's like, go find stuff. And, you know, I played this game for 100 hours. I had no idea until 100 hours in that there's like a whole like town building portion. Just stuff that you're just finding stuff constantly. And, you know, we've talked about it several times, but the experience that we had of this game had just come out, and we were in Los Angeles filming the Night Trap documentary back in 2017. And we did not know anything. And we were just like both like in our Airbnb, like sitting there playing. And we were just like sharing information back and forth of like, oh, I found this thing at this place on the map. So the other person would make a marker to go check it out. And it was just this undistilled feeling of like, this is something special. Like this kind of situation can not be recreated intentionally.
Yeah.
You know, like Nintendo let out very, very, very little information about these games until release, so that people were just like overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that they were finding. And it's just like, it is such a special experience that you can't recreate it. Like, it has to happen naturally. And you only, especially nowadays, you do not have an experience like that. And this is not like taking away at all from Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom did so much incredible stuff. You know, like I said, I just can't believe that it works and it does not break. Like you can try real hard to break that game, and I don't think you can.
No, it's insane. Like that's why I'm saying other developers don't have the guts to do it.
Yeah, or the time or attention or the money to be able to do that. You know, it's just like Tears of the Kingdom is super impressive, but without Breath of the Wild, there would be no Tears of the Kingdom. And you know, that's why, like, thinking about Breath of the Wild, like, you knew you were playing something special. When you played Tears of the Kingdom, you knew how special Breath of the Wild was. So it's like, all right, this is using the same world. Like, it feels less special because of that. And I think it's just it's funny to me that, you know, my favorite game on the system is the first game that came out that I played on the system.
Yeah, well, but it was so impactful. My number one, and I you know, anyone who knows me knows exactly where this is going, just because I haven't mentioned it yet. You know, my buddy Kirby is sitting back here. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. You know, I think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the more impressive game? Absolutely. Like, from just like a pure raw game design perspective, they're the better games than Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But I put Kirby and the Forgotten Land at number one because it feels so much like a game that was just tailor-made for me. Like this game is made for me. I have been waiting like almost all my life for a 3D Kirby game, because you all know I loved the N64, still love the N64 so much. And it was this exciting new frontier, 3D gaming. And I thought, like, all of the big Nintendo series and all the other series I loved, I was like, just like chomping at the bit to see how are they going to do this in 3D. And that moment didn't come for Kirby. I've been waiting since I was like 12 years old for that. And anything like in games that like takes me back to that younger time, like, you know, elementary school, middle school, even high school, even maybe to some point college, like anything that just like feels like it warps me back to like where I feel like the realization of like my hopes and dreams for video games when I was younger, like literally like chokes me up, because it just like, it makes me feel like a kid again. And like, it brings tears to my eyes. And I've been saying really ever since this game came out that like the greatest feeling that a game can give me is to make me feel like a kid again. And Kirby and the Forgotten Land gave me that feeling in a way that like eclipses even something like Super Mario Odyssey. I don't even know if I would say that Kirby and the Forgotten Land is like the best Kirby game. It's very close, I would say. But they realized Kirby in 3D for the first time so well. The worlds and the levels are very memorable. I 100%ed the game within a week because I was just that hooked on it. It gives me that greatest feeling a video game can give me. It's something that I have wanted for most of my life, and to finally see that come to reality after so long, I just emotionally resonate with this game so much in a way that I have to put it at number one, even above the likes of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So there you have it. That's our top 3 for the Nintendo Switch, our top 10 in total, with a whole bunch of honorable mentions and disappointments.
You know, talking about this stuff and going through these games and talking about like, especially these both of our number 1 picks and the way that they make us feel, you know, I think that goes a long way in showing just how special this generation is. And I'm not even sure if any generation of consoles will ever be able to like reach this point again. For us, for people like in their 40s or older, right? Who even knows what's in store with this for the Switch 2? But I don't think it'll be able to like surpass like the kind of stuff that we've seen. Like we might see some stuff that's just as good or better, or we probably will, but just the zeitgeist around it. You know, just everybody talking about it and being excited about, you know, like these, you know, you'll never have a chance to have a first time 3D Kirby game again.
Yeah, exactly. The generation is winding down. You know, I think there's always this sense of denial, especially among younger people, I think, who, you know, have become accustomed to much longer generations than we had when we were growing up, and they're like, oh, it's not dead, it's not dying. And no, it's not dead, it's not gone yet, but it is winding down. I mean, let's face it, when they did their last Nintendo Switch 1 Direct, the one more thing was Tamagotchi Life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that's a bad game necessarily, but if that's your one more thing, like you're winding down. Like,
and that's okay.
That's okay. I think Switch will have a good deal of third-party support for some years to come, but I think Nintendo's first-party focus is very much going to swing hard to the Switch 2. And yes, this is not necessarily saying goodbye to the Switch, but it's celebrating, you know, these 8 years we've had with it, and that we will have this library with us, you know, as long as we live.
Well, thanks for listening to us ramble for far too long about all these games on the system. I'm curious what everybody else, like what they would pick as their top 3, or what are some honorable mentions that, you know, that people are annoyed that we didn't mention.
Hoppin' mad.
Yeah. Let us know, and thanks for watching.